Hello, friends, yogis and karateka. I wanted to follow up on the last video I made and talk to you a little bit about kind of the background that I was referring to a couple of times. I guess the story starts many years ago when Jen and I were first teaching karate classes. We were teaching in various places in Edmonton, community halls, and part of the traditional warm-up set, the Junbiyundo, had a yoga set of sun salutations that was, passed on to us from my teacher. And we just kind of hit a moment. We thought, wait a minute, this is yoga. We don't know anything about yoga. We're teaching yoga. And it just so happened when this struck us that there was one of our seniors in the school who was taking a yoga class. And so we joined him one time and went to that class and just kept going to weekly classes for some years. That particular teacher Jen connected with because this was really helpful for Jen's chronic pain that she was suffering then, a result of a car accident, a serious car accident she had in her last year of high school. So that was a wonderful healing journey, and Jen went the full distance and basically apprenticed. There's another word for that, but that teacher became her mentor. So and through that, I think a 2-year process of certification, Jen became certified as a yoga instructor under the Yoga Association of Alberta. So that was the beginning of that, and we started attending classes regularly and made some small efforts to include that work in our karate classes, but we didn't make a really strong connection at that point. It was one summer, Jen was actually away for a week or two, and I attended an Ashtanga class. What we were studying before was Iyengar classes, and I just on a lark attended an Ashtanga class, and I had this moment that I find a little bit embarrassing to talk about because I'm not prone to visions and dreams and prophecies, but I had a real visceral kind of experience where I was in the class, and as is typical in the Ashtanga practice, the instructor put his hands on me, and I think arguably more sensitive than a lot of people to touch and the intention of touch, just because of the work that we do. And I just felt right away that there was just no nonsense in that touch. It was very matter of fact. And what's more, I just saw, just for an instant, as if like a lightning bolt went off and just like illuminated this deep well or something. I just saw deeply into the past, it seemed to me, a connection between yoga and martial arts, and actually specifically this kind of yoga and the kind of martial arts that we practice. And it was quite a stunning thing. But as I said, although I'm not prone to those kinds of, I have a vision like that. I can't think of another occasion where I've had really that kind of experience. And so I don't typically make big life changes based on those kinds of experiences. But I was excited about the practice, and when Jen came back, we both started attending summer classes in that style. And, we went to a workshop with David Robson, quite an intensive 40-hour, week-long intensive workshop with him. And for me, that was the point at which I decided, okay, well, I'm going to practice this. I'm going to take this practice on as a daily practice. And Jen also became very enthusiastic about that approach. And but even so, we weren't ready to just say, okay, that's what we're all doing in the karate school. So it took quite a long time to work through. Jen created a few drills and a few different things that we could do in class, and finally reached a point that we are at now, where we just realized, these decisions have already made. This is what works. That this is, of all the various things I've tried to do, simply because you can't simply wave your arms around the air for martial arts. You have to have some kind of quote unquote physical fitness. My teacher put it really simply. He said you can't do martial arts successfully and be a 98-pound weakling. And you're not going to develop that strength just doing the kind of a aerobic type of training that you get if you're just doing a lot of kata or a lot of hojo wando or something like that. So this really seemed perfect, much better than other kinds of calisthenics that I've done, or weightlifting, or any number of approaches that I've tried. Feldenkrais, Alexander technique, all these kinds of things. So that's all that happened, and I spoke to knowledgeable people knowledgeable about the history of these practices, specifically David Robson, Jen's yoga teacher, about that insight that I had. And he just kind of shrugged his shoulders and said it's not controversial, that these things have always been connected for sure. Historically, in India, these kinds of things were practiced more or less as a single unit. And there's a traditional martial arts that's still practiced in India. And I've seen little clips, bits and pieces, and it's quite remarkable. They have a form that looks an awful lot like our San Chin. How could anything stay so so the same with different countries and hundreds of years? It's remarkable. But right in the middle of some of those forms, they drop into a sun salutation. They literally combined in the same movement sets, these two practices. So how they became separated in the first place, I don't know. But seeing how things are now, I see a sort of dysfunction that's kind of built into that separation. I see the martial arts side of things disconnected from the yoga tradition as a kind of macho arts, as my teacher refers to it. Just very aggressive, totally focused on the physical aspects. Frankly, I don't know if I want to say irresponsible. It's not necessarily true that everybody who approaches martial arts in a sport way or in terms of connected to professions like security guards and soldiers and that kind of stuff. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily irresponsible individuals, but it just strikes me, as I was saying in my last video, that there's some profound questions that studying a martial art can present to you, and there's a reason why these things come out of spiritual traditions, because those questions are really worth addressing. And so anyways, those questions are for the most part, largely ignored now in martial arts practice. It's just not what's done. Big concerns with competitions, and so the point of doing a martial art is to be the toughest guy in the room, and to be able to, I suppose, frighten everybody into compliance, or I don't know. It doesn't seem to me to be the healthiest approach to things. And on the yoga side of things, it's gone completely the other way, where the karate stuff has gone so male in a sense, so aggressive and so non-female. There's nothing soft about it. There's nothing internal about it. It's just externalities. How strong are your muscles? How fast are your kicks? And on the female side of it is the yoga exists, which was never that way in the past. It was always, everybody was doing it. And it seems to me that yoga's lost an awful lot of its core, and its strength, and its integrity. It's become kind of what I call relaxation yoga or spa yoga, and there's a softness that's not the softness of the soft side of practice. It's not about surrender. It's not about release. It's not about greater truths. It's about the softness of self-indulgence and just finding the path of least resistance. It doesn't really go anywhere, as I was kind of describing in my last video. So we have this kind of strange dichotomy. The practices themselves have lost some of the just fundamental basics within the yoga practice I'm talking now, of engaging bandhas, of having a strong, clear breath, and also that sense of of loyalty and connection to a practice often isn't there. Even people that are just doing a lot of yoga, oftentimes are doing a lot of different yoga and a lot of different schools, and there's no particular allegiance to a teacher or a method. And as I was saying in my last video, to a practice. So that's a little bit of background. The next time I put a video like this out, I would like to address how I think yoga ought to be practiced. And I'm not in a position to do that for our yoga students, because you've got Jennifer, she's your yoga teacher. But I'm addressing particularly my karate students and what I want them to get out of this practice as karateka. And maybe you yoga people will be interested in that. See you next time.